Michael Carter had always considered himself a man of principle. A retired Army sergeant, he had spent decades living by the values of discipline, loyalty, and tradition. He carried those same ideals into his role as a father, raising his children to respect authority and follow the path he believed would lead to success. But nothing in his military training or life experience had prepared him for the moment when his son, Tyler, came to him with a truth that turned Michael's world upside down. It was a warm Sunday evening, and the Carter family had gathered for their usual dinner at Michael's modest suburban home. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air as the conversation drifted between lighthearted banter and updates about the week. Michael's wife, Linda, noticed Tyler shifting nervously in his chair, a far cry from the confident young man they knew. "Dad," Tyler began, his voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you." Michael set his fork down, sensing the gravity in his son's tone. The room grew quiet, the clinking of dishes and soft hum of conversation fading into an uneasy silence. "I'm transgender," Tyler said, exhaling as if releasing a weight he'd carried for years. "I'm a woman. My name is Taylor." For a moment, Michael didn't respond. He stared at his son, or rather, his child, trying to process the words that hung in the air. Taylor sat across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her face a mixture of vulnerability and hope. Linda and Rachel, Michael's daughter, exchanged worried glances, bracing for his reaction. "What are you talking about?" Michael finally said, his voice sharp and incredulous. "You're my son. I raised you to be a man." "I'm still your child," Taylor replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I've always known this about myself. I need you to see me for who I am." The room erupted into a heated exchange as Michael's disbelief clashed with Taylor's desperate plea for understanding. His words were laced with anger and confusion, a rejection of something he couldn't reconcile with the life he'd envisioned for his family. Finally, Taylor stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "If you can't accept me, then I can't stay," she said, tears streaming down her face as she left the house. As the door slammed shut, Michael sat frozen, his family fractured. Unbeknownst to him, this moment would set him on a journey of self-discovery, forcing him to confront the boundaries of love, acceptance, and the values he held so dear. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house, leaving Michael Carter in stunned silence. His wife, Linda, stared at him, a mixture of anger and sadness etched across her face. "How could you say those things to her?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Her?" he snapped. "Linda, he's our son. This is ridiculous. I won't entertain it." Rachel, their daughter, interjected, her voice filled with frustration. "Dad, she's been trying to tell you this for years. Do you have any idea how hard this has been for her? For all of us?" Michael shook his head, pacing the room as if the movement would somehow help him think. "You're asking me to accept something I don't understand," he said. "I raised Tyler to be a man, to stand tall, to live with honor. This is not what I expected." The fractured household. Over the next few days, the tension in the Carter household was palpable. Taylor didn't come home, instead staying with a close friend who had offered her a safe space. Linda and Rachel tried to reach out to her, but Michael refused to acknowledge the situation. He buried himself in routine, repairing things around the house and working in the yard, as if hard labor could mend the cracks in his family. But the silence wasn't healing. It was suffocating. Linda couldn't hold back her frustration any longer. One evening, as Michael sat in his armchair, pretending to read the newspaper, she confronted him. "She's still our child, Michael," Linda said, standing in front of him. "You don't have to understand everything right away, but you have to try. She needs her father." Michael sighed, lowering the paper. "And what about what I need, Linda? Do I not deserve some time to process this? It's not fair to spring something like this on me and expect me to just accept it." "It's not about you," Linda snapped. "It's about her, and if you can't see that, then you'll lose her forever." Taylor's journey. Meanwhile, Taylor was navigating her own struggles. Staying with her friend Maya offered some comfort, but the pain of her father's rejection weighed heavily on her. She joined a local LGBTQ+ support group, where she met others who had faced similar challenges. Hearing their stories gave her strength, but it didn't erase the hurt. During one meeting, Taylor decided to write her father a letter. She poured out her emotions, recounting her childhood memories of admiration for him, how she had always wanted to make him proud. She wrote about the years of confusion and fear she had endured, and how finally living as her authentic self had brought her peace, even if it meant losing him. Maya encouraged her to send the letter, but Taylor hesitated. "What if he doesn't even read it?" she asked. "Then that's on him," Maya replied gently. "But you'll know you tried." Michael struggles. Back at home, Michael couldn't escape the emptiness that Taylor's absence had left behind. He found himself lingering over family photos, memories of birthday parties and soccer games flashing in his mind. The son he had known was gone, replaced by someone he didn't recognize, and he didn't know how to bridge the gap. One day, Rachel handed him a folded piece of paper. "It's from Taylor," she said. "Please read it." Michael took the letter reluctantly, placing it on the kitchen table. It sat there for hours as he avoided it, busying himself with chores. Finally, late that night, he sat down and unfolded the paper. Taylor's words hit him like a punch to the gut. She spoke of her love for him, her longing for his approval, and the deep pain his rejection had caused. The letter ended with a plea. "I know you may not understand, but I hope you'll try. I'm still me, Dad. I'm still your child." The Veterans Meeting. The next week, Michael attended a local veterans meeting, seeking solace in the camaraderie of men who understood his disciplined, black and white worldview. During the meeting, he met Logan, a fellow veteran who shared his story of coming out as gay after leaving the military. Logan's words struck a chord. "In the service, we fight for freedom, for everyone to live their lives authentically, without fear. It took me years to realize that includes me, and it includes your child too." Michael sat in silence, the weight of Logan's words pressing on him. He had always prided himself on protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Wasn't Taylor deserving of that same protection, even from him? Taking a step forward. Michael's turning point came when Linda handed him another letter, this time from the LGBTQ+ support group Taylor had joined. It was an invitation for parents and family members to attend a meeting and hear stories from trans individuals and their loved ones. Reluctantly, Michael agreed to go, unsure of what to expect. At the meeting, he listened as parents spoke about their own struggles with acceptance and the joy of rebuilding relationships. A young trans man shared his story of finding acceptance after years of rejection, and his words brought tears to Michael's eyes. For the first time, Michael began to understand the courage it took for Taylor to come out. He realized that his love for her had always been conditional, tied to his expectations of who she should be, rather than who she truly was. Reaching out? That evening, Michael called Taylor for the first time since their confrontation. His voice wavered as he spoke. "Taylor, I don't have all the answers, but I want to try. Can we talk?" Taylor was hesitant but agreed. They met at a park the next day, the tension between them palpable. Michael apologized, acknowledging the hurt he had caused and admitting that he had a lot to learn. Taylor, though guarded, agreed to give him a chance, setting clear boundaries for their relationship moving forward. Months after their first tentative meeting in the park, Michael and Taylor were slowly rebuilding their relationship. It wasn't an easy road. Michael often stumbled over his words or struggled to grasp aspects of Taylor's identity. But for every misstep, there was progress. Each conversation brought them closer, replacing the resentment and hurt with understanding and hope. Michael took deliberate steps to educate himself. He attended more meetings at the LGBTQ+ support group, reading materials they recommended, and listening to stories that expanded his perspective. He began to realize that his struggle wasn't just about accepting Taylor, it was about confronting his own biases and rethinking what it meant to be a father. A family reunited. One evening, Taylor visited the family home for the first time since the confrontation. The table was set with her favorite meal, Linda's way of welcoming her back. Rachel greeted her with a warm hug, but it was Michael's nervous smile that stood out. "Hi, Taylor," he said softly, her name still new on his tongue. "I'm glad you're here." Taylor nodded, sensing the sincerity in his words. The evening was filled with cautious conversation, but it was a step forward, a moment of connection that felt long overdue. After dinner, as the family sat together in the living room, Michael handed Taylor a framed photo. It was an old picture of the two of them at one of her childhood soccer games, both of them beaming at the camera. "I've been holding on to this," Michael said. I thought I was losing the person in this photo, but I realize now I haven't lost you. You're still my child, and I'm proud of who you are." Taylor's eyes filled with tears as she took the frame. "Thank you, Dad. That means everything to me." A new chapter. As their relationship grew stronger, Michael found himself becoming an unexpected advocate within his community. He spoke at a veterans event about his journey, sharing how his experiences in the military taught him the importance of fighting for everyone's right to be themselves. His words resonated with many, sparking conversations among people who had never considered the challenges faced by LGBTQ+ individuals and their families. A quiet moment. One Sunday afternoon, Michael and Taylor sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. Taylor sipped her tea while Michael worked on whittling a piece of wood, a hobby he'd picked up to calm his mind. "I never thought we'd get here," Taylor said, breaking the silence. "Neither did I," Michael replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "But I'm glad we did. And I'll keep learning every day if it means I get to be your dad." For the first time in years, Taylor leaned her head on Michael's shoulder, and they sat in peaceful silence. Together, they had proven that love, though complicated, could overcome even the deepest divides.